crises come up every 3 or 4 or 5 years. And these aren't a little recession.
Why on earth would you want to be in the family business?
For him still to take the first step to go out on his own.
As hard as it was, and he, as an immigrant coming from Italy at a very young age.
And also with 3 kids and a wife.
They talk about work-life balance, whatever that exactly means, I'm not sure.
Friday night, Saturday. It doesn't matter whose cottage you're invited to. It doesn't matter whose party it was. You're working. If you're not fully bought into it and if you're not willing to sacrifice things, you might as well not even try.
So why on earth would you want to be in the family business?
In my kindergarten class, and our teacher asked, "What would you like to do when you grow up?" And to be quite honest with you, I thought about it for probably a second or two. And in my mind was, I want to be like Dad. So from that, I said to them, I want to have my own clothing store just like my dad. And pretty much for me, even through my school, all the way, my pathway, I just went right for that and I never looked anywhere else. How about yourself? What made you decide to join the business and be alongside me for the last 30 years?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. For me, I think I always knew too. I remember going to the shop, the original shop, and on Saturdays, and it was a time to spend time with Dad, quite honestly, because he was there all the time. So for me, I think it was a double reward for going. But I think Dad's example was pretty big in terms of why I took that path. And to me, he almost, as hard as it was, and he, as an immigrant coming from Italy at a very young age, in a new world, with limited, education, was able to persevere. And he always had that dream from a young age as well. And I think, believe that we still kind of feed off of that sort of almost, it's not really, I don't know if is it a natural thing? I don't know. What do you think? Or is it something we've learned?
I think a part of it is following his example. He's a good example as far as determination, hard work, good values. The amount of people who would constantly come back and visit and visit. And you had all kinds of different people from all walks of life who would come and visit him at the shop. And to see how it wasn't just a transactional thing for him, there was a friendship he had for a lot of people. And to be honest with you, I really like that part of it. And that's probably a big reason what has drawn me there, but also what has kept me there as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is you're really talking about what today they call community building, and he was creating at a very over hard work and a lot of time, and I think we've learned the same things as he built he was building a community around his business and interacted with the people in the community, which I think is one of the big keys to success and to continued success, building on that and developing your own legacy.
That's right.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, that's an important part of it. Is the continuation will come if you continue to build the legacy behind it, with that same drive and determination. And there are days where it's not that fun. We know that.
Well, that's it. It let's face it, it's not the most glamorous business. We know that. It takes a lot of time. You sacrifice a lot of weekends. How many free weekends have you and I have had in the last 35 years? We can count pretty much on one hand. If you're not fully bought into it and if you're not willing to sacrifice things, you might as well not even try. Because especially in these days, demands really 120% of yourself, not just even 100%. You have to go extra with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if how do you feel about that?
I agree with you 100%. And we're fortunate that we have each other to
100%.
work.
Yep.
As two people, the business only grows so big. But with our community, with the community at large, there are bigger things that we can do as well. And Dad was a perfect example. He had done charity fashion shows for years. We've done, and that was kind of a lesson in terms of giving back.
You know,
that was good.
and I was going to add, to, with that too, he did sacrifice a lot of time. But one thing mom and dad always did too, they always made time in the summers. We went on holidays.
Yep.
It wasn't always fancy ones,
Mhm.
and it doesn't need to be fancy.
Nope.
For that, we're pretty lucky.
Oh yeah.
That way, we got to see a good amount, and for me, because I was quite a bit younger, at a very young age, that way. So he always made time.
Was there anything? There was anything in the early days of working in the store with Dad that stick out for you that when?
Well, just going back again to time was for us. Would work part time, so it usually was Thursday or Friday nights, Saturday. Those are non-negotiable.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter whose cottage you're invited to. It doesn't matter whose party it was, or what else is going on. You're working.
Yep.
Non-negotiable.
Yep.
Um, which I think and again I've thought about this over the years, and sometimes I did miss some not going to some things or whatever. The way that he made sure that we were committed has made us better today because of that.
Sure.
And I'll be honest, I don't regret that. I don't hold any hard feelings.
What do they call
For
that? FOMO? You don't have any FOMO?
No, I don't have any fear of missing out. No, and I still don't when it comes to things. Because at the end of the day, when you're working on, especially, how things over the years have changed, to me, still the biggest reward is seeing that it's doing well. And doing well means happy customers, number one. Because if you don't have happy customers, you're not going to have a happy business over time. And with that said, you also, just as important, you have to have happy employees, and you have to set the example. Because if you don't do it, how can you expect your employees to do it if you don't do it?
Well, that was Dad's
And
big
that
mantra.
was one of his big things that
yeah.
has stuck with us, for the whole time. And with that said, that's how also we've been, we've been lucky to be able to. We don't have a lot of people working for us, but whoever have worked for us have stayed with us for a long time.
Mhm.
And I think that's because we're also believe that we will do some of the not pretty things that sometimes some people would think a boss believes that they're above.
Well, I think that's you hit it on the head though. That the leadership, Dad was a very good example of lead by example. I think we both try and emulate, what we're doing here, so that the staff and it becomes contagious. But there are, is there any other thing though that you would say in yourself and from a leadership standpoint that you would differ from that, or that that you've added to that?
I would always do the simplest things as far as in a shop, you're dusting, putting out the garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
If it snows, you're shoveling.
Yep.
Out front.
Mm-hmm.
Those are little things that I don't necessarily. I've never always said it. I'm going to do this. I just would do it.
Yeah, it needs to be done.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the employees, I give them power to do things, not to constantly. Oh, I have to ask.
Yes.
Paul, or I have to ask Mark.
Yep.
It's they can help the customer or give answers quickly, because people want to have answers instantly these days.
Well, people also want to feel
Yes.
like your employees want to feel like that they're also adding value, that they're
Yes.
useful, that they're capable and confident to make those decisions.
That's
'cause
right.
who doesn't want to do that,
Yes.
right? Like who wants to? You can't just lead them around by their ear.
So really, to properly answer your question, I think I did. I have my own style. I don't try to be Dad. I don't try to be you.
Yeah.
Okay. I find I'm a little bit gentler. I'm a gentle.
So what are you saying? I'm not gentle.
No. I'm just saying, not necessarily gentler, in a gentle way.
You said it. It's okay. Don't get upset.
But anyway,
apparently I'm the bad guy.
no, you're not the bad guy. But you know what? We are, again, and that's what makes, I think, you and I a good team. Is we're two different personalities.
Yep.
And you're not going to apologize for who you are, and I'm not
Nope.
going to apologize who I am. And I think if we're both the same people, maybe I don't even know necessarily if we would still, be together, or would we still be happy together as far as You have your strengths. You're very strong on business. You're strong with
No, I don't know
numbers.
about that.
You're very good with coming up on the horizon and that type of thing. You know,
I don't know about
as
that.
far as these days, as far as we can see,
As far as you can see, it was about
these
four
days it
feet.
seems like we're
Yeah, you go about 4
driving
feet
in
ahead. That's about it.
pea soup right now.
Exactly. It comes, times have been a little bit interesting lately. And then, talking to Dad sometimes, he says, well, it was tough when I started and I had that. What do you think?
For him still to take the first step to go out on his own, that was a big step.
Sure.
And also with 3 kids and a wife, and you have a home, you have the bills
Pressures.
to pay, pressure.
Yep.
Okay, that's a big step. That's not easy. I get that. We have our own set of challenges. We've had a crisis come up every 3 or 4 or 5 years, and these aren't a little recession. These are big deals.
Yeah. I think the crisis depends, it's all relative. I think in today's the technology, the world's moving in a different way.
Yep.
It's faster. It's more right. So it's also from what chair are you sitting in? How difficult was it?
That's right.
At 21% interest rates in 1978, it's not very pretty.
No.
The sky's falling. The financial crisis of '08 was one thing. And COVID, are we all going to run around with no pants on for us? We're like, how are we going to sell anything that, how is society going to go on past, where are we going with this thing? So I think it depends where you're sitting. You have to find a way to be resilient and adapt. And I think, those are big takeaways for me is that, Dad was always very, pretty good at being resilient, and determined, and you are who you are. So, it's very easy. Sometimes people talk about the word pivot, which I never liked that word. The word's one of the worst words I ever had. I don't like that word, although it has its place and it's very important. I feel that, sometimes it's right to pivot, and sometimes it's right to dig your heels in and with conviction, do what you need to do what you believe to do. And I think that's another thing that, we can credit Dad for is that belief. If you don't have the belief to do these things, it's a pretty lonely and precarious road. So I think, those are things that looking back at it, those are traits and qualities that I know for me personally, decide making business decisions going forward, making life decisions going forward, making decisions about our community and our neighborhood is all, to me, those are the things that sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say it's time to pivot. Sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm okay. We know what we're doing. Let's go. Like I said, pivoting and looking at things differently. It's easier with two people because you you also get two different sets of ideas. You have two perspectives. One guy's, how many times we had a day where one of us is in the.
Well, usually one day one guy's up, and the other day the other guy's up.
We're lucky. Then there's those couple days where we're both not up.
Well,
that's not good.
Yeah.
But and that is a different dynamic for two of us versus one. But I think that those common things that he's talked about are, not even talked about. It's more things that he's done and watching and learning. And we had the benefit of people talk about mentoring, and I've done some mentoring in the past as well. But we were very fortunate that we had a mentor at the kitchen table.
That's right.
And oftentimes, to the chagrin of the rest of the family, business conversation leaked onto the table too. But those were invaluable conversations as well, and learning times and sharing times, and it would bridge between the business and family. But I think those were invaluable conversations and situations that, looking back at it, we were pretty fortunate to have that sort of thing. So we haven't really solved who had it tougher though.
I think the probably a good answer would be every era has its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
So he had his set of challenges in the late 70s, late 80s, early 90s. And we had our challenges in the 2000s so far, our own set of challenges. Yep. As far as who had it harder, I don't know.
We have to settle with an arm wrestle.
Well, I would just settle that each generation has their own challenges, really. Do you think Christian or Ryan want to take over the business someday?
So you're asking me if one of the boys, one of our sons, will take over the family business? No. It sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Dad would say, "Get out. You're not doing this. Go do something else." So, will they do that? I guess you can never say never. I think it would be difficult for them to do it in some ways. I think we want them to choose it, to do it. I would never expect them to
No,
do it, either
no,
one of them.
no.
If they had showed a genuine passion and that's what it would take, then maybe I would say, there's probably a little sliver of hope here. But I would say if I, only if they want it to be that's their passion, and that's something that they can see, and you can see that in them, and you can see that they've learned the lessons and that they have the skills to do it. You'd want to set them up for success. If there's a path there, certainly not. But if you ask me, I say no. What do you say?
Well, I can already say Ryan has already come to me and said that he will not be interested in taking over
Okay.
the business.
There you go. You said
Because
resignation
even to
before it
get him
started.
into a button-up shirt, he says, "I don't like to wear these fancy clothes." He prefers to wear a nice Toronto Maple Leaf hoodie.
Yeah,
That's his, in a pair of jeans. That's his
track
uniform.
pants. You're lucky you get jeans on. My
Yeah.
kid's track pants, track pants, track pants.
Yeah.
So you don't think he will, eh? That's
No,
it for him.
that's a hard no from him. No,
Okay.
I don't think he'll ever change his mind.
Now, do you think that's because we've discouraged them from doing that?
I don't know if I've ever really hardly discouraged him, but I think he has other strengths that he can put to work in other places that I think he would do very well.
So now that we're both fathers, how do you think you've differed in the way raising children from when Dad was running the
Well,
business?
I think a lot of it is because I have the one child, excuse me, the boy there, 11-year-old, who loves hockey. He loves soccer, basketball, sports. If he doesn't have any friends around to play with, I'm his buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's different is I'm a lot more involved as far as leisure time with him, as far as to play sports or, especially shooting the puck around and even taking him to stick and puck sessions where I actually get on the ice with them too. It's good for me too. A lot of the times, a little bit of cooking together, and that's a little bit different than even how mom and dad raised us. That way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. We both have just one boy each, and I think roles have changed too, where the responsibilities at home are different than when Dad started the business and was in the business. The allocation of time between family life and work life is, they talk about work life balance, whatever that exactly means. I'm not sure, but you try and achieve a different level of that. Like you said, with one child, you're also a playmate, a confidant, a friend as well. And that's, to me, that's a different role than my dad would have had for sure. Christian and my son, they're always watching us. So you also want to provide an example the way we were given an example of how to conduct yourself as a person, but also how to conduct yourself, in the world of business as well. And I think that's something that I'm acutely aware of myself. You have that responsibility that, there's a young individual that you're hoping to develop into the leader of the future, a leader of the future in whatever capacity that is. Is he going to be in the menswear store? I don't think so. But once in a while, he gets intrigued by it. But I ultimately don't think that's something he would want to do.
Okay. So who do you think dresses better between you and I?
Well, I don't know if that's the same question as who's better looking. But if you were going on style, I'd say I have to give you the nod.
Why is that?
Why? I don't know. You just have a little more. You're probably, although, we're both wearing pretty dark stuff today. You're a blue black kind of guy, but you carry your clothes a little better. You're a little taller. You got hair. And I think you just have a little more flair than I do. I don't know how else to explain it.
It's funny
You
because
gonna
I
agree with
find
me?
but the one thing I would say though, you're not afraid to do different things when it comes to even sports jackets. You'll wear brighter stuff than I usually do.
I know I struggled to get dressed
And
today.
remember
to be
even
honest.
that three-piece glad
Don't
check
make fun
suit
of
that you had?
the clown suit.
The
People,
clown
somebody called it a clown suit. They're just not very confident people. That's all. They're not very confident
Yeah.
people. Yeah, no, I think I just look. I need a bit of color, and I think Dad always said, you got to wear. I don't have the pinky skin that you got,
Mhm.
so I got to have a little bit of I need a little bit of color, and I like to show different things that what we have. So to me, I like to wear something a little bit different.
So where do you think our industry's going as far as even style or
Well,
that
styles
type of thing, eh?
is an interesting
What do
one.
you
There's
think?
there's a lot of I to me it's funny. I always say that with what is style. Styles change over styles change over the years. Is the lapel bigger? Is it double breasted? Is it single breasted? Are we wearing pleats? We've been in it long enough. We've seen all of it. Um, uh, the biggest takeaway for me in menswear in the last 40 plus years is that the big change for me from when even Dad would have started was guys wore clothes because their wife told them that they needed to get something new, and they wore some clothes because they couldn't go out naked. So, and then Sunday they had to wear dress clothes for church or for social events. So it was more out of necessity than fashion. The biggest thing I've seen in North America in particular is now guys are becoming more and more aware, and they are also developing their own sense of style. So that becomes a much more open-ended question. What is style? What styles are changing? Travel, business travel, technology has influenced. Every region used to look a little bit different. I think more and more now, people it's becoming more eclectic, and people are taking from things that they see in their business travels or personal travels. Um, the world is they see every we see everything that goes on all over the place. So, to me, been a lot of change in how style is viewed by men in particular. um, you know, the importance of style and being able to express, style is self-expression. Let's face it. If you don't have, that, it's one of the few ways people can tell a little bit about yourself before they even talk to you. And I don't care what anybody says. They say, well, you can't judge a book by its cover. No, you can't. We have a pretty good idea what's in the book by
Mm-hmm.
the cover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a recipe book if it's a Bible. So it's to me, style is becoming a more evolving and more exciting thing for men than it ever was before. And we've seen a lot of change. Like, what are your favorite things that you've seen change in style, or which ones don't you like?
Well, I like stretch in jeans.
Who does it?
I also like now with a little bit of stretch in the jackets and suits. I think that that thing I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still like the slimmer silhouette, even though I think we're going to start to be going away from that in the next few
So you
years.
don't like those four pleated pants we
The
used to wear?
four pleated pants of 1991, not
No,
really. That wasn't my well, but but that said, at that time I thought it was pretty cool,
that's the thing, right?
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be cool again too. And I think already even the younger generation, let's say in their late teens, early 20s, some of them are already adopting some of that look.
Yep.
So and we need them to do that, and then they'll push for the change overall.
Yeah. For
You know,
I don't know how many times that we'd say, "Oh, that's really cool." He says, "Ah, I wore that in 1964."
yeah, we're there now.
Now we're there
Now
now.
we're
So
there.
now
Yeah.
we're in that spot. That's kind of crazy. Feel old a little bit. So, Mark, when it's all said and done at the end of the day, what would you consider, or what would you like to consider what your legacy would be? What does legacy mean to you?
When we're all said and done, that we were able to say that we brought the business to another level, that we did a lot of good as far as provided good jobs to people. We also gave back to our community, and we were also again upheld our reputation in this industry as a reliable and fair partner for our vendors. On a personal side, I hope that I can be looked as a good husband and a good father that always put my family first, and that I would always have time for them. How about yourself?
Well, for me, legacy is a all encompassing sort of complex idea, because to me, legacy has to include lessons you leave behind for people. It could be people go by and they see or they come across an old bag that has our logo on it when we're long gone and said, "Remember that those guys." It's about to me the leg for me legacy is about the relationships and the effect that I've had on other people in terms of whether it's customers, staff, family members, that people say, they were part of the bigger part of the community than, they were remembered as a business person, but they also remember as a person that gave back. I've been fortunate enough to do a little bit of mentoring and a little bit of business advisory. And to me, the biggest reward is watching people develop and learn, even if it's a little smidgen of something from me, that's something that they maybe take it forward. And to me, that would be very important. Legacy to me, is it financial? Not necessarily. To me, it's about those things. Are you a good person? God forbid one day I pass away, what are they going to write about you? To me, that's a big one. I know what I could write about myself. I know what I could write about somebody else. But how do people see me? How do people see are they talking about the fact that, he worked for 40 years in his own business, or are they talking about a kind, caring person that was a leader in the community? To me, that would have more value. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Brotherhood, what does that mean to you?
A brother to me is a friend on a whole nother level. I've always believed, personally, when it comes to family, you should always have your brother's back, no matter what. You don't always have to agree with him, but you need to at least lend an ear and listen to what they're saying. A brother to me, is somebody not just who you grew up with. It's a bond that really can't be broken. A brother, for me, for the most part, gives me more strength, especially when things get a little tough. A brother always, or especially for you, you've always been a guy I could lean on, and I would hope that I would provide that support back to you. That would be, to me, that's what a brother is. How about you? What do you think?
I think you hit a lot of it right on the head for me too. I mean, it's beyond a friendship. It's and it can transcend biological brothers too. I mean, you can also have situations where somebody is acts like a brother to you, but for me, there's not the same bond as your own family. Being there for somebody, sometimes it doesn't have to be much said or done, but just physically, or being there for somebody. It's also about sharing, and to me, it's about being able to share things with somebody. It's a lot more fun to share it with you than not. And I would rather have you there doing those things with me than doing it on my own. At the end of the day, is Dad proud of what we've done? I think he is. I think we surprised him a few times.
I think we have.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. There were times that he didn't ever think we would do certain things.
Yeah.
And I think sometime by him telling me or you that, I think it was probably a bit of a more of a motivational speech than it was anything as far as knocking us down. Which I'm thankful for that, because it gave us fuel to make sure that we did what we wanted to do, and we were successful at what we did.
100%. I think that that drive's got to come from somewhere, and everybody shows it in different ways. It gets motivated by different things, but yeah, he was a big key in that, in terms of, that's just I think he's proud. I think something he said to me when I was 10 years old, that's still, or not, maybe not 10, say I was 15 years old, and I've said it, I catch myself now, this is the part of the life where we start to sound like our parents. And he said to me, whatever you build for yourself, nobody can take it away from you. And to me, that's a huge lesson. Probably I've heard, and like I said, I've said it to my son already. He's 14. And I really believe that that's a big part of where his pride will come from, is what we've done ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've built on to the legacy that he started.